Legend. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, and Google's definition is an extremely famous and notorious person in a particular field. And in this instant, the particular field is going to be the British Army, and the regiment is going to be an ancestor regiment of my own, one Royal Irish, and the legend we're going to be discussing today is Sgt Labalaba. How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. My name's Luke, if you aren't aware of that and it's your first time on it. For any of you who are aware and you're here every week, it's an introduction. We got to keep doing it. Whenever you're so small, within YouTube itself, there's my monitor gone. Whenever you're so small, you got to keep doing these introductions just in case anyone comes for the very first time and they know what it's all about. Anyway, Ranger Media, what is it? It's a sort of a military channel brought to you by myself. All things army specific and infantry. So one Royal Irish Regiment, that is my regiment. So a lot of the stuff I'm capturing will be off them because that's my sort of homeboys. You know, you're going to find loads of stuff on here. It's going to be how-to videos. So if there's anyone, anyone who's or if yourself, you're looking to join the British Army and you've come across it and you just want to get that better understanding of what life may be like, there's plenty of stuff on there for you as well. Anything to do with kit and equipment. Obviously that's going to be geared around basic soldiers. Will get stuff out of it as well, but it's more infantry style stuff, and our roles and stuff, which for us is the sort of foxhounds. There's going to be stuff in there as well. There will be sort of kit reviews in the sort of distant future, and that's not like what other people do. That's just more of stuff that I use and the benefit of it, and stuff that may help you going through whether training or in the unit. It's stuff that I've used, whether it's been good or bad within the years. Right, what's bringing me into this week's episode. So we're going to be talking about Lavalava today, and the reason being for that is Fijian is one of the reasons, because they are a sort of massive, Fiji is a massive asset to the British Army. So if aren't aware, which a load of you are, because I know a lot of people messaging me are from the Commonwealth. Fiji is part of the Commonwealth, and loads of men and women from Fiji come across to serve in the British Army. So this, I know it's going to be, the episode is sort of aimed at Labalaba, but it's also at the Fijian community. Because if you don't, if you've been unlucky enough to not meet a Fijian and not work with Fijian, they're the most, caring, understanding, loving, really great friends. They're really great mentors. I'm lucky enough to have my very first team leader was a Fijian, an absolute man mountain. And they're also lucky, like I did as well, when you're on really tight operations, if you have a Fijian in your team, you're good to go, which you will probably hear about in this next story we're going to talk about, which I did. I had 2 Fijians in my first operational tour. Okay, so Sgt Labalaba then. We've got the fact that he's Fijian, and this is why I'm bringing it out, because they're Commonwealth and they contribute a lot to the British Army. But the second thing then is my own regiment, because we put the Corby at the start. When he left Fiji to come to the British Army, he went and he joined the Royal Irish Rangers, which is one of them regiments I was talking about earlier on, which all sort of amalgamated in to form what we are today. So he was a ranger before he obviously went on selection for SAS, obviously passed, and went off into the SAS, which I believe is B Squadron. Now, I'm not sure how long he served with the Rangers before he done this transition, but yeah, so he done it anyway. The reason then I'm going to talk about it then is, if you don't know, and if there's any Fijians, of course you're going to know, because he is an absolute mentor and an iconic figure within your country. It's more the sort of younger generation who might not have a clue who this guy is. So we're talking, well, let's revert back to the 70s. The British Army were operating in Oman. Now, the rest of the world at that time did not know the British Army were operating in Oman. Now, obviously, well, maybe not obviously to some people, but, the main place that the British Army were tied up in was Northern Ireland, and heavily within the sort of troubles there within Northern Ireland. And it was quite kinetic as well. But Oman then was the only other operation that the British Army were serving in, which was like a highly sort of kinetic as such operation. They were doing loads of stuff that I didn't really know about until, obviously I know about Labalaba, but I didn't know about the other sort of stuff that was happening in Oman, where sort of our British officers were going out and training with the Sultan's forces, and sort of commanding them and helping them fight the fight who they were fighting, the bad guys, which were, I keep getting this wrong, they were communist rebels. And the Sultan, they were going down there to, their forces were pushing them back on the southern border. Anyway, so this team, the SAS team, were in there. Small team of them, there's 9 of them there in Oman, in Mirbat, which is just off the sort of coastline. And to bring that into sort of modern days, what they were basically doing is what specialised infantry do mainly, but also us and other regiments do as well, is them STTs, which we talked about in a couple of videos ago, which are small term training teams. So that's when you have a sort of small team that go into a different country and you'll train that country's armed forces or whoever it is. That's med skills, specialist weapon skills, leadership skills, and just generally mentoring them and passing on your experiences to them. So they were down there doing that. They were there for a period of time, and it was getting close to the end of their operational tour, and they were sort of thinking, like, minds were set on coming home. Anyway, so they're in this like main house in Mirbat, and there was 9 of them, and you would look at that house as being their sort of FOB, forward operating base. Similar sort of style to the sort of Middle Eastern compounds. And if you haven't seen any, you'll see plenty on the internet. I'll have some pictures on here as well. So they were in there, and they had another position. It was about 700 or 800 yards away, and at that position had a light artillery gun. Correct me in our artillery who are watching on what round that fires. I cannot remember. Anyway, that gun then is going to be the important part of this story. So we'll flick away this gun. So this gun then is a light artillery gun. It normally takes 4 or 5 men, or in this case nowadays women as well, to operate this gun. So you need someone to unload it, someone to lay it, someone to put in their coordinates, and then someone to actually fire it. And then you have to consistently go through that process to reload, realign, re-engage, and fire. So you team of 4 or 5 people, and that's a well-drilled skill you have to do in amongst your team to do that. If there's any artillery or anyone who's had any experience with any artillery, drop it in the comment section below and just share with the audience and how hard that may be. Right, so anyway, these guys are in here, everything's all quiet, they're in there, they're training the sort of Sultan forces and normal day to day, and then, you know, long story short, 300 to 400 of these communist rebels advance onto their position and do a well orchestrated attack. Now, when I say about that is, you know, anyone with any experience in sort of Afghanistan and stuff, some of the attacks are very well orchestrated, but some of them are just sort of, you know, like prone opportunity attacks, like shoot and scoot. Someone who's not really trained correctly on a weapon system points in it. You've seen plenty of the stupid videos across the internet where they just hold a PKM up or something, hold the trigger on and hold on to it for dear life and just point, hope and spray it, hit someone. Okay, this wasn't the case in this instance. This was a well orchestrated attack. They were advancing on them, 300 to 400 fighters. That is a lot of fighters. If you think about it now, that's near, flip me, that's like 300 to 400, that's like a near enough a flipping a battalion is what it is. Sort of full manning for a light protected mobility battalion. My lot is 510, so it's 100 people off that. That is a lot of manpower, like advancing onto you. They're firing mortars in towards this team as well. They obviously have all their own sort of weapon systems, which is AK-47 and AK variants, which predominantly the whole way across the board is going to be a 7.62mm. That's a big round, and that's not great to be having that fired at you, especially the amount of people. So they're all advancing now. So it's a very, very heavy firefight, and you'll get that from the sort of documentary where it's reconstructed, and you'll get that all out of it, and just see the impact that was having. Anyway, so these guys are all advancing on the sort of team. It's only the 9 of them, remember. So that we're going to flick around across all the story over to this other building. So you get the main building where 8 of the team are. And then over here is another building with this light gun. So Labalaba, who's the Fijian, which we talked about before, he's 30 years old, and he's described as a very sort of caring, loving, but you know, a very manly character where he had loads of character and honour, and everyone respected him anyway, which they would. It's a tight-knit team anyway, and they're going to have that bond, and they will say that about each other because they are. So he's there anyway. And he is then firing this light artillery gun for over an hour now by himself. So he's aiming it, he's reloading it, he's firing it, he's taking the empty shell out, throwing that away, full shell back in again. It came to the point where the fighters were getting that close. He had the barrel pointed all the way down, and when he had the shell out, he was looking through the barrel, and that's how he was aiming at the foe coming towards him. Now, account from one of the other guys, can't remember his name, one of the other SAS troopers was part of the team, was over in the main house. They could hear Labalaba firing this gun, and he said the noise and the rapidness of that gun, it sounded like a machine gun going off. He was getting it off that quick. He said by the time he was firing a mortar, Laba had 2 or 3 rounds off by the time he could reload with his mortar and get it off. So that's the absolute workhorse, the courage, the aggression, and the skill that Labalaba is performing in there. So he's doing that. But it came to about then, he took a round to the chin at this point. So it just grazed the chin, but we don't, but it's still taking a flipping 7.62. It doesn't matter. Whenever people say it just grazed him, as in to just bat it off, it's like you've fallen off your BMX. I'm telling you now, it's a different story if it's 7.62's grazing your chin. Anyway, so that's happened. He's bandaged himself up and he's continued to fight. So he's slightly injured now and he's still operating this gun. So he had a friend then, which is Tak, which is another Fijian, which was part of within the team. He wasn't an ex-ranger, so I don't know where Tak's sort of background is before he went SAS. But he is in there. And this is another thing about the Fijians, which they bring to the British Army as well, is their sort of community. They are the strongest community type people there are. But the Fijian community is extremely strong, and if we were like that as a country, it would be even better. Anyway, so you know that these two now have got this bond as well as being soldiers, which gives them even more bond, so you can just know the extreme bond that these are going to have. So Tak then decides he needs to go and support Laba. So he didn't even ask this, because I'm presuming that Tak's like a trooper, so that's like a private within the team, but it's obviously a very, 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 very experienced sort of private. Don't get it mixed up with a 1-year private within the normal army. Takes it upon himself and runs towards Laba's position, which is about 700 yards in extreme Omani heat, desert environment, and there's absolutely no cover whatsoever. If you can imagine now something as flat and as open as a football pitch, that now, and a couple of rocks and sand and desert and stuff, that's what he was running across. But running to that position, but as he's running towards that position, he's running towards the oncoming fighters, 300 to 400 often, remember, all firing in weapon systems. So he's running into a hail of bullets to get to his battle buddy. He gets there, and they put on a really good fight within that gun. There's a little outhouse building about 5 meters away from the gun, which the sort of Sultan forces were in there, like a platoon strength of them, who they were there to train. Tak crawls out and he tries to get them to come out to fight, because that's what they're here for. I believe he comes back to the gun and he only gets one to come out and fight, and unfortunately he takes a round to the stomach, and then that's him out of the game. Tak gets back into the gun position, and at this stage then the communist rebels are very extremely close. Like everyone, all these troopers and SAS troopers are getting ready to become like hand-to-hand combat, that these people are getting so close. At this stage then, Laba then crawls back from the gun slightly to grab a 60mm mortar barrel. It's a smaller mortar. It can be operated with one person and is really effective at close range. But as he's crawling back to that, and is really unfortunate, he then takes a round from an AK-47 presumably to the back of the sort of neck area, which is a fatal wound, and it kills Laba outright. Tak then looks back. He obviously becomes very emotional then, because he's lost this this brother that's meant so much to him. Not only has he served together, they're their own countrymen as well, and he just lost that. But he just said then he was emotional at that sort of split second, but then flicked the switch to know he knew what he had to do. This firefight needed one, that was to deal with afterwards, but he got that emotional. He knew he had to finish it for Laba, and then they continued on. There's a few other bits and pieces that happen within that. The guys back in the sort of the bat house is what that sort of fob was called, managed to get air support in, and they did manage to start driving the sort of the rebels back, and they survived, apart from obviously Labalaba and don't know his name. There's another trooper. He was the medic. Sorry. So when Tak went to there was a medic came with him, a part of the team. And he also was fatally wounded there. Yes, so that is the story. The link will be left in the description for the full sort of documentary on that. It's a more modern documentary. There was a lot of older stuff on the internet, but this is a lot more modern. I think believe it's like sort of 2011 the time it was sort of made. With the battle I just discussed, they've done like a reconstruction of it, which really does paint the picture a lot. I'll see what way this sort of worked out, and may have thrown in a few clips of that through me talking. But definitely, if you've got 45 minutes at whatever stage of the game, follow that link, and hopefully that should bring you to that documentary. Yes, so that then finish it with on this week's legend, which is Sgt Labalaba. That was in 1972, I want to say the 16th of July. 19th of July, sorry. 19th of July, 1972. And he was 30 years old when that happened. It really just paints the picture on the sort of courage, discipline, selfless commitment, all these big sort of core values that the army teaches you right into action. And it's definitely really good to look back at stuff like that, and there will be a lot more other role models within British Army history who've done a lot of things within sort of battlefields, and it's important to look back on them and reflect on what they've done and hold them in the back of your head, because trust me, if you doesn't even need to be on a tough operation. It could be in a really crappy exercise, and you just hold these sort of people in your head, think about what they've done before you went, and then that gets you through things. And so it's really sort of bringing them out through history into the sort of modern age. And for any of the younger viewers who may not know any sort of VC winners back in sort of this century, or any sort of conflicts that were going on, and sort of bringing them out, because it's important to know what sort of you're going to join. Like specifically, if there's anyone watching now who's coming to the regiment, who's interested in joining the regiment, like he is a key factor within our regiment. He's part of our history, so it's good to know what he's done, and the sort of them soldiers and rangers and everything that come through and what they've gone before. So yes, that was him, and that is the sort of the first video on this new sort of one I'm going to throw in every couple of weeks, which will be looking at sort of different VC winners and different sort of really good actions it's happened within history. So another one before we leave that, obviously at that time Oman was a secret war, so they couldn't the British, they couldn't acknowledge what had happened as such at the time. So none of them men could be rewarded any sort of awards, so medals as such. What is it? I will leave it I'll drop it here somewhere now afterwards. But Tak was awarded a medal for what he done. But definitely there was a campaign for them, as in a couple of years ago, to get them acknowledged for VCs, which I definitely think that you need to go and watch that documentary and watch it with it and just see exactly what they done. Laba, if he hadn't done what he done at that artillery gun, and then rebels got to the artillery gun, they're well equipped, they weren't going to quit, they knew exactly what they were doing with weapon systems, so they're going to know how to operate it. So if they got into that gun, took that gun, they could have easily turned it round onto the fob where the rest of the SAS team were, completely bombarded that and wiped them out, and then that gives them the foothold and then to push down into the docks and further south of Oman, and then God knows what could have happened then. It could have a really big consequences at a bigger scale. So definitely what he done, that selfless commitment, and the courage and everything he went through, it needs recognised. Obviously a really big hero in Fiji, and he is a brilliant representation of Fijian, and they're not much different than that. Definitely from only the ones that I've met, and I've served with them in our regiment, the Rangers. We've got loads of them there as well. And they all have seen them operating in operations, on exercise, all that sort of stuff, and they are a gleaming warrior soldier mentality, so definitely get amongst it. Yes. Right, so there will be more coming out, reference sort of handpicked legends. If there's any other one that you may know of, or that you would like to hear of within sort of future episodes, drop it in that sort of comment section below. But till that end, the next sort of couple of ones is obviously not going to be next Thursday now. It's going to be every sort of other couple of weeks. I'll throw it in just to keep that sort of diverse content coming through. But I'm going to be going through some of our the regiment's VC winners. So that's throughout all the different sort of regiments that formed up the One Royal Irish over the last sort of 100 years or so, just to really bring you out where we came from and just all the sort of different bits and pieces that makes us who we are today. So if you like this week's episode and you think it's something else that it's good to come back to the channel, please have a like, and if you haven't already, click the sort of bell icon and subscribe, because it will help out the channel and I really do appreciate it. Right, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again on the next episode.